And now, my friends, we're going to discuss the real threat to America. No, it's not the tens of trillions foreign banks have stolen, or the fact that world government's openly being announced in a world currency system, or Israel saying they're getting ready to strike Iran, and reportedly they have special forces already attacking facilities inside the country. Iran is calling it U.S. terror attacks. No, that's not an issue. Not our country basically turning into a depression ridden system. None of that is a threat. Our borders wide open. 60,000 dead in the last 3 years inside Mexico. Our government caught shipping cocaine into the country and guns into Mexico. None of that is the threat. In fact, for 11 years, it wasn't a threat that Bernie Madoff, the SEC knew was ripping off people for tens of billions of dollars, and they covered it up. No, none of that is a threat. The threat is Amish producing cheese and raw milk, selling it to their neighbors or bartering it. The problem is food co-ops selling or bartering with friends and family raw milk. No, that's the threat here in America. And last week, a new type of freedom riders took action for the civil right of producing their own healthy, natural food. And they publicly drank raw milk, but even more wickedly, publicly drove, to illustrate the absurdity, across state lines and consumed milk in front of the Food and Drug Administration offices. And joining us is Liz Reitzig. She's one of the founders of Farm Food Freedom Coalition. And I have a few quotes here by the Food and Drug Administration, where they say that they think that it's improper for anybody to ever consume raw milk. Here it is. It is the FDA's position that raw milk should never be consumed. Agency spokesperson Tamara N. Ward. Now, there's no law against it, but they'll still basically try to arrest you somehow for it. And so joining us today to discuss this is Liz Reitzig. And you guys haven't been arrested yet. I mean, you're a mother of 5. That makes you even more Al-Qaeda-ish. You're politically involved. That's even more dangerous. I mean, you're some type of serious thought criminal here, and you're enemy number 1, because I see reports of year-long stakeouts of Amish, always a big problem, for selling their neighbors milk, who really are undercover people who beg them to sell it to them. So tell us about the organization. Tell us about your move that's actually elicited the Food and Drug Administration to now respond.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, Alex. And second of all, it's technically, in Pennsylvania at least, it's okay to sell raw milk to your neighbors. What's the illegality here is taking it across state lines, because somehow that milk becomes dangerous as it moves across the imaginary line that we call states. But that's where the real criminal activity is just in crossing that state line. And in response to the egregious acts that you just described by the FDA, a group of moms from California and the D.C. area, we banded together to form the Farm Food Freedom Coalition, specifically to take on and to bring to a broader audience what is happening with the FDA and our small farms.
Well, I would also add, not only is this unconstitutional in my research and view, it's another example of a federal power grab. They're claiming the Commerce Clause, aren't they, whenever they declare jurisdiction. It's not that it's unsafe when it crosses that state line, even if you live right on the state line. It's that the feds basically want to control all commerce in this country. Right.
That's exactly right.
Now,
their whole argument is that it's never safe, that raw milk is inherently dangerous.
I mean, I've researched some of it, but you probably know more than I do. What's the history of how we went from regular, natural, wholesome milk, not being pasteurized, being, basically extracted every morning and then delivered to your door, and then I guess Big Agri came in the last 50 years, demonized it, got state laws passed, so they could take dirty milk, spoiled milk, boil it with all the pus, blood, the rest of it, overworked cows, and then ship it across state lines, across the country, and then basically use government to shut down their competition, real milk, so the counterfeit, basically liquid cheese, pus derivative, that has now supplanted real milk, and real milk is an endangered species being hunted down by the federal stormtrooper Gestapo.
Well, actually, just the abbreviated history of real milk is that at the turn of the century, between the 1800s and 1900s, what was happening is investors were investing in dairy cows, but where the dairy cows lived was in confinement operations within the cities, so that the transportation was much shorter to get to the populations in the cities. And this is very abbreviated. It's well worth the research if you're interested, or if anyone's interested. But those cows, they were hand milked. There was no closed milking systems. There was no refrigeration. Sometimes the workers were very sick, and they were fed. More importantly, the cows were fed the waste from the distilleries, which is not cow food. So you can imagine that milk was not ideal. Some of it was diseased. And when the advent of pasteurization happened, this was something that did help significantly for a time. But now we've got the knowledge of how to take care of our animals very well. We feed cows grass, which is what they're meant to eat. And
That's your opinion. That's a conspiracy theory.
Okay. Fair enough. Some people prefer milk from grain-fed cows. So.
No. Or like in Europe, the offal. Feeding cows rotten meat is good. No, I mean, I'm being sarcastic. Sometimes you're in the store and it says grass-fed beef or whatever. It's kind of like an oxymoron that you would have to tell somebody that. But nowadays, if you criticize government or industry in any way, they just say conspiracy theory. So it was a lame attempt at humor. And of course, I was oversimplifying, and I think in a way you may be a little bit too, because from my research, there were certainly some of the big dairies that did have problems, and then they wanted to use pasteurization to cover up the problems. Right. But then there were some dairies that did have good practices as well. But I think the angle you're hitting on, which I've certainly read about, is that it was already big corrupt operations that were used to give old-fashioned milk a bad name.
Right, but there was also, at the same time, plenty of proponents of certified clean raw milk. And the pasteurization won out at the time because it was more efficient. But now we're seeing this wave of people. I call it a food renaissance, because it's people who want to get back to eating really good food, wanting to get back to knowing the sources of their food. And so they're returning to direct farmer-to-consumer transactions, including a large population of people who are returning to raw milk.
Now, I want to give you the floor here instead of going back and forth with a lot of questions, because I've seen the video that's been posted online. Pretty powerful protest, got a lot of attention, and from the press reports I've read, made the FDA and its demonization of raw milk look silly. So basically, I mean, as a raw milk expert, as an activist who's certainly researched this more than myself and most viewers, what is the state of this food renaissance right now? And what is the state of the attempt to crack down or correct me if I'm wrong, intimidate people that are producing raw milk and selling it or bartering it? Because from what I've seen in the news, there is an attempt at least to crack down on it like it's medical marijuana or something.
Right. Well, actually, much worse than that. But just in terms of where it is right now with the people, there's people all the time who are asking for it, who are searching it out. The Weston A. Price Foundation, they have a campaign for real milk that people can look up and find a producer near them. They do a great job of educating about why people would choose raw milk and where to find it. And it's really hard to fully estimate how many people are drinking raw milk right now, but I can tell you it's just a fraction of the number who want to. There's constantly people who are looking for it. It is kind of hard to find because, to the second point, the FDA and the state ag and health departments are ferociously cracking down on our farmers like they're horrible criminals just for producing and, in some cases, providing across state lines raw milk for human consumption. And with that, what we're seeing is, for example, armed raids on farms where they're going in and confiscating thousands or tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment and food and sometimes personal belongings. And we're also seeing undercover sting operations on small farms, buying clubs, and co-ops, which, I mean, we know how ridiculous that is. And, I mean, this is milk we're talking about. It's nothing other than milk. But yet, like the buying club that I'm a part of, the FDA conducted a 1.5 year long undercover sting operation on it, just to discover that they were, in fact, providing raw milk.
And by the way, this wasn't done in secret. They do the investigation to I guess, hype themselves up like this is really something illegal, and later they need to show it to a jury. I've seen them walk into places selling organic vegetables with guns drawn, as if that makes you a criminal because they act like you're a crack dealer. I mean, you can really see the theater that's involved here.
Right. And sometimes I wonder if the enforcers know exactly what it is that they're going after there, because I can only imagine like how they come home that day and say, you know, their spouse says, so how was your day? And they say, oh, well, I spent the day going after food. I mean, I really wonder if they have any idea what it is they're actually dealing with.
Well, how did you get involved in all of this? And then continue with the state of, raw foods, whole foods, period, because I have a few other questions.
Well, I got involved in all of this because when my first daughter was about one and a half, she had some serious digestive issues, and she was showing signs of being intolerant to conventional milk. And my sister's also highly allergic, so it was natural for me to suspect that. And we did some research, my husband and I did some research, and we found that we wanted to try her on raw milk. And we did, and her digestive issues completely cleared up. And there was a time when after my second daughter was weaned, that we couldn't find it, and we put them both back on pasteurized milk, and they both got very sick from it. So ever since then, we've decided, raw is the only way to go. We're not going to try again to put them on pasteurized. It did not work for them. So that's how I got involved, just in that, in just purchasing it. But then when I realized part of what happened was in Maryland, the health department, who regulates milk, banned cow shares. Now, a cow share is when several people go in together and each own part of a cow and then get the milk from their own animal. And the health department redefined that as a sale of raw milk, specifically to make it illegal.
Yeah, God forbid people in the cities start creating their own farming co-ops. That'll end the big Wally world. That would end concentration camp farming of chicken. That would be people actually going back to the land by hiring their own people to do it. My God, that would end the power monopoly over people in North America. We can't have that.
Of course not. So they redefined it. They just took something and redefined it, because when you're the government, you can just redefine things. And so they made it illegal, and that really upset me, because that's when my daughters couldn't get it. And so it really pissed me off that here they are undermining my authority as a parent. Now, mind you, I can feed my children soda pop and lollipops all day long, perfectly fine.
Or formula that's half corn syrup.
Yes, right. But get raw milk for them? No.
Well, but by the way, I've read a lot of history. If you go back even 100 years ago, or even 60, 70 years ago, I was reading cases in Germany. The doctors, before they were told by HMOs what to do, they would say, your child can't hold down regular milk, get them raw milk. I mean, this has been well known. Or if they have a problem with that, get them raw goat milk. Or raw goat milk that's been powdered, or Jenny milk, jackass, donkey milk. I mean, all of these, this has all been known for cultures forever. You figured it out yourself, trial and error, but this has been figured out by people, and it's been known, and but here's another question I have for you, and you can finish up with the other story, or finish that, and then get into this. I was having an argument with a family member about, no, raw cheese is legal. I don't care if you read in the news that they raided a group who was, a farm that was creating raw cheese. You can go to Whole Foods and buy raw cheese all day long. In fact, most stuff from Europe's raw cheese. And then I went and showed them on the Whole Foods website, yes, frequently asked questions. In fact, folks, we can probably show this after you leave. It says, yes, we sell raw cheese for now. So the point is, how are they raiding people producing raw cheese, but then big companies are allowed to sell?